All right, let's dive in. Today we're tackling a question that I think a lot of us have pondered. Why do people break the rules?
It's a question that has fascinated sociologists for decades.
Yeah, I mean, we're all told to follow the rules, to play by the book,
Right.
but then we see people all around us cutting corners, bending the rules.
Even flat out breaking them.
Exactly. So what's going on here? Are some people just born rule breakers? Or is there something more complex at play?
Well, that's where our deep dive today comes in.
We're going to unpack some seriously thought-provoking ideas from a sociologist named Robert K. Merton.
His work on social structure and anomie is a classic.
Yeah, his 1938 article on the topic is still relevant today.
Super relevant, actually. It helps us understand how society itself can create conditions that lead to deviance.
Okay, hold on a second. Deviance. That sounds kind of intense.
Yeah, it's a fancy word sociologists use to describe behavior that violates social norms.
So not just breaking the law, but any kind of behavior that goes against the grain.
Exactly. Like, think about something like cheating on a test.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely breaking the rules.
But it's also deviant because it goes against the norms of academic integrity.
Makes sense. So how does Merton explain this?
Well, he argues that it's not just about individual bad choices.
It's not about bad apples.
Right. Merton says we need to look at the bigger picture, the social structures that can actually encourage rule breaking.
Okay, now that's interesting. I'm already intrigued. So give me the basics here. What's the core of Merton's argument?
He says that problems arise when there's a mismatch between the goals that a culture values and the legitimate means it provides to achieve those goals.
Okay, I think I'm following you, but can you give me an example?
Sure. Think about the American dream.
Everyone should strive for wealth and success.
That's the goal. But society doesn't always provide everyone with equal access to the resources and opportunities they need to actually achieve that goal.
So it's like setting up a race where some runners have a huge head start and others are stuck in starting blocks they can't even get out of.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. And that gap, that mismatch between goals and means.
It creates a ton of pressure.
Yes. And it's this pressure that can lead people towards actions that society labels as deviant.
It's like society is telling everyone to climb this ladder of success.
Right.
But some people are given a sturdy ladder with all the rungs.
While others are stuck with a rickety old ladder that's missing half the rungs.
And maybe they're even starting the climb from a ditch.
That's a powerful image. And I think it captures the essence of Merton's argument.
So it's not just about wanting things, it's about wanting them so badly that you're willing to break the rules to get them.
Exactly. And that's where the concept of anomie comes into play.
Anomie. Okay, that's a word I've heard before.
But maybe not totally clear on what it means.
Yeah, I'm a little fuzzy on the details.
Well, think of it as a state of normlessness.
Normlessness, like anything goes.
It's more like the rules start to lose their meaning.
Because the desire for success becomes so overwhelming.
Right. People start to feel like they have to do whatever it takes to get ahead.
Even if it means breaking the rules.
Even if it means bending or breaking the rules.
So it's not just an individual feeling, it's like a societal condition.
Exactly. Anomie happens when the pursuit of those culturally valued goals becomes detached from any sense of morality or shared values.
Whoa, so it's like the glue that holds society together starts to dissolve.
That's a great way to put it. And this is where things get really interesting.
Oh, I bet. So what happens when society starts to unravel like that?
Well, Merton went on to identify 5 ways that individuals adapt to this pressure cooker environment.
5 different ways that people react when they feel like the system is rigged against them.
That's a great way to think about it. He called them modes of adaptation, and they each represent a different approach to dealing with that gap between goals and means.
Okay, I'm hooked. Give me the rundown on these adaptations.
He called them conformity, innovation, ritualism, retreatism, and rebellion. Each one represents a different way of dealing with that gap between goals and means.
All right, let's take them one by one. Conformity seems pretty straightforward. You accept the goals and play by the rules. But what about innovation? That one sounds intriguing, especially in the context of today's world.
Innovation is when someone accepts those big cultural goals, like, say, financial success,
Right.
but they reject or just can't access the legitimate means to achieve them.
So it's not that they don't want to play by the rules.
Right.
It's that the rules aren't working for them.
Exactly. And so they get creative, they find workarounds, they might even resort to illegal activities.
So they're still in the race. They just might be cutting corners or even totally breaking the rules to get ahead.
Think about it in terms of the tech world.
Okay.
Some startups while aiming for massive success,
Right.
might engage in practices that are, shall we say, ethically questionable.
Pushing the boundaries of what's acceptable.
Exactly. Or, a classic example is organized crime figures.
Okay, yeah.
They're all about achieving wealth and power,
Right.
but they do it outside the law.
So they're innovators, in a sense.
In a sense, yes. They're finding alternative ways to achieve those culturally valued goals.
Okay, that makes total sense. It's like the ambition is there,
Right.
but the playing field isn't level, so they make their own rules.
That's a great way to sum it up. And I bet this kind of innovation is happening all the time.
Oh, I'm sure of it.
Right under our noses.
Now, this next one, retreatism, sounds kind of bleak.
Yeah, it can be.
What's that all about?
This is the adaptation chosen by those who have essentially given up on the whole game.
Given up. Like they've thrown in the towel.
They've rejected both the cultural goals and the means to achieve them.
So we're talking about people who are chronically unemployed,
Possibly.
maybe struggling with addiction, living on the fringes of society.
They've checked out, retreated from society's expectations.
So they're not necessarily rebelling against the system.
You're not in the traditional sense.
They're just opting out altogether.
Right, they've disconnected from the system that they feel has failed them.
It's like they're saying, this game is rigged, and I'm not even going to try to play it anymore.
And, of course, just like with any of these adaptations,
Yeah.
it's not always a permanent state.
People can move in and out of these categories.
Exactly, depending on their circumstances and what's happening in their lives.
Okay, so we've got conformity, innovation, retreatism. 2 more to go. But before we jump into those, I want to touch on something that feels super relevant to us today, especially here in America.
Okay.
This whole idea of the American dream, working hard to achieve success.
Right.
Merton actually wrote about this back in 1938, didn't he?
He did.
He called it a cultural exaggeration of the success goal.
And that's such a brilliant observation.
Because
it gets to the heart of why this mismatch between goals and means can be so problematic.
Because we're bombarded with messages about wealth and success being the ultimate goal.
Yes, but not everyone has the same opportunities to achieve it.
Right, and that creates a lot of tension,
Definitely.
a lot of pressure.
It can lead to anxiety, frustration, even resentment.
And as Merton points out, it can create conditions that are ripe for deviant behavior.
Precisely.
It's like the system itself is generating the very problems it's trying to control.
Yeah.
That's pretty mind-blowing.
It is. And this brings us to a common perception that I know we're going to unpack.
Which is
that poverty directly leads to crime.
Right, that's something you hear a lot.
But using Merton's insights, things aren't quite so black and white, are they?
You're right. There's definitely more nuance here.
Exactly.
It's not just about lacking money. It's about lacking access.
Right, precisely. It's the combination of limited opportunity, relentless cultural pressure to achieve this often unattainable success, and economic hardship.
Right.
That creates the breeding ground for what we call deviance.
It's about feeling locked out of the system.
Yes.
While constantly being told that you should be able to succeed within it.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. So we've got this pressure cooker environment, 5 different ways people adapt to it. This is heavy stuff.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten to the last 2 adaptations yet.
We haven't.
Should we take a break and come back to those?
Let's keep going.
Okay, you lead the way.
All right. I think you'll find the last 2, ritualism and rebellion, particularly fascinating.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. So we've covered conformity, innovation, and retreatism. Now, let's talk about ritualism. This one might seem a bit counterintuitive at first.
Okay, hit me with it. What's so counterintuitive about ritualism?
Well, with ritualism, a person goes through the motions, they follow the rules meticulously, but they've kind of lost sight of the bigger goal.
Lost sight of the goal. So they're not really striving for success anymore.
Right. They're just going through the motions.
It's like they're on autopilot.
Yeah.
Just doing what's expected of them without any real passion or ambition.
Exactly. Think of the classic image of a burned-out office worker.
Okay.
Someone who's been in the same job for decades,
Oh, yeah.
punching the clock, following the routine,
In there.
but they've completely abandoned any hope of, climbing the corporate ladder or achieving any real sense of fulfillment.
Oh, I know that type. They show up every day, do the bare minimum,
Right.
but they've totally disengaged from the whole idea of achieving anything more.
That's ritualism in a nutshell. They're conforming to the means,
Yeah.
but they've abandoned those culturally defined goals.
It's a way of adapting to the strain.
It is.
But it's kind of a passive form of adaptation, right?
It is, yeah.
Like a quiet resignation to the status quo.
Exactly. They've accepted that they can't win the game,
Right.
So they're just playing to not lose.
That's a great way to put it. And now for our final adaptation.
Yes!
We have rebellion.
Rebellion. This one is a bit more radical.
Okay, I'm sensing some fireworks here.
It can be, yeah.
What makes rebellion so different from the others?
Well, rebels reject both the established goals and the means. But they don't just drop out of the system.
Right.
Like the retreatists do.
They're not just checking out.
No. They actively try to change the system.
To change it, like how?
Well, to replace it with new goals and new means.
So they're not just playing a different game. They're
Yeah.
trying to rewrite the rules entirely.
Exactly. Think of revolutionary movements throughout history.
Okay.
Challenging those existing power structures.
Right.
The accepted norms.
Yeah.
And they fight to create a new social order.
So it's not just about personal gain.
Right.
It's about creating a whole new system that they believe is more just.
More just, more equitable.
That's a powerful image.
Yeah.
It's like they're saying,
Yeah.
this game is rigged.
Yes.
And we're not going to play it anymore. We're going to create a new game, a fair game, where everyone has a chance to win.
That's the essence of rebellion.
It's a proactive response to the strain that Merton describes.
It is a transformative response.
Wow. Okay, so we've got these 5 adaptations: conformity, innovation, ritualism, retreatism, and rebellion.
A whole spectrum of responses.
Each one representing a different way of navigating this tension between societal goals and the means to achieve them. But I have a question. Can people shift between these adaptations?
Oh, that's a fantastic question.
Like, could someone be an innovator in one area of their life and a ritualist in another?
Absolutely, yes. These aren't fixed personality traits.
Okay.
They're fluid,
Yeah.
dynamic responses to the specific situations we find ourselves in.
So we're not just one thing.
Right.
We're a mix of different adaptations.
Exactly. We might conform in some aspects of our lives while innovating or even rebelling in others.
It all depends on the context.
It does.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not like you're born a conformist or a rebel.
Right.
We're constantly adjusting to
Hey,
the pressures and opportunities that come our way.
To the different situations we find ourselves in.
And thinking about it in those terms, it makes these concepts feel so much more relevant to our everyday lives.
That's the beauty of Merton's theory. It gives us this
Yeah.
framework for understanding not just, the big
Yep.
dramatic examples of deviance,
Right.
but also the subtle ways that we all navigate
Yeah.
these societal pressures in our own lives.
Now, you mentioned earlier that Merton's ideas could even be applied to international relations.
We did.
That seems like a big leap.
It is, but it's a fascinating one.
Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Sure, think about it. Nations, just like individuals, have goals.
Like what?
Economic prosperity,
Got it.
security, influence on the world stage.
Right.
And they have different means of achieving those goals. Diplomacy,
Okay.
trade agreements, military power.
So when a nation feels like it's being blocked from achieving its goals through legitimate means,
Yes.
it might resort to more, shall we say, unconventional tactics.
Precisely. You see this all the time in history. Nations engaging in military aggression,
Right.
violating international agreements, imposing economic sanctions. These could all be seen as forms of innovation or even rebellion on a global scale.
Wow. So they're pushing the boundaries,
Yeah.
breaking the rules, because they feel like the system isn't working for them.
Exactly.
That's a fascinating parallel. It's like Merton's theory provides this lens for understanding not just individual behavior, but also the actions of nations on a global stage.
And it helps us to make sense of why conflicts arise,
Yeah.
why nations sometimes act in ways that seem irrational
Right.
or even self-destructive.
Because they might be responding to the same kinds of strains and pressures.
They might be. That Merton identified in individuals.
Wow. Okay. So we've got these 5 adaptations
Right.
playing out on a global scale.
A global scale.
Things get really complex really fast.
They do, and it raises some important questions
Like what?
about how we can create a more just
Yeah.
and equitable world.
Right. A world where everyone has a fair
But a
chance
fair chance.
to achieve their goals.
Yes. Without resorting to actions that harm others.
It's about finding ways to bridge those gaps between goals and means.
Right, to reduce the strain. That can lead to conflict and instability.
It makes you think about the role of international organizations.
Yes.
Diplomacy,
Yeah.
even global economic policies. All of those things that are meant to level the playing field.
To create a more balanced system
Right.
where everyone can thrive.
Exactly. And it highlights the importance of understanding different perspectives.
Yes.
different motivations.
If we can see the world
Yeah.
through the lens of Merton's theory,
Right.
we might be able to find more constructive ways to address these global challenges.
To create a more peaceful and prosperous future for everyone.
That's the hope.
Okay, so we've gone from individual behavior to the actions of nations on a global scale.
Quite a journey.
That's quite a journey. But before we get too carried away with these big picture ideas, I want to bring it back to something more personal.
Okay.
We've been talking about these 5 adaptations.
Yes.
And I'm starting to wonder, where do I fit in all of this?
Where do you fit in?
Yeah. Have you ever thought about which adaptation best describes you?
That's a question I ask myself all the time. It's a constant process of self-reflection, trying to understand how my own choices and behaviors are shaped by these societal pressures.
And expectations.
Exactly.
I think that's a great takeaway for our listeners, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, we can use Merton's theory as a tool for self-discovery.
I love that.
We can ask ourselves,
Yeah.
which adaptation resonates most with me?
Mm-hmm.
Where do I conform?
Right.
Where do I innovate? Where do I rebel?
Right.
And most importantly, why?
Yes. Why?
What are the underlying reasons for those choices?
Those are powerful questions. And as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into Merton's work,
Yeah.
I think the most important thing to remember is that none of these adaptations are inherently good or bad.
Okay.
They're simply different ways of responding to the challenges and pressures of the world we live in.
That's a great point. There's no judgment here. It's about understanding.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that everyone is trying to navigate this complex social world.
In their own way.
In their own way. And by understanding these different adaptations,
Right.
we can develop a deeper empathy for others.
Even those whose choices might seem strange or even counterproductive to us.
Precisely. It's like,
Yeah.
instead of just judging someone's actions, we can try to understand the underlying forces that might have led them to that point.
To see them as individuals navigating a system
Yes.
that isn't always fair or equitable.
Right. Exactly.
And maybe, just maybe, that understanding can lead us to find more compassionate and effective ways to address the challenges of deviance.
The challenges of deviance, both on an individual level and on a societal level.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We've explored Merton's 5 adaptations, connected his ideas to the American dream, even ventured into the realm of international relations.
It's been quite a journey.
And through it all, I think we've gained some valuable insights into the complexities of human behavior and the ways in which society itself can contribute to both conformity and deviance.
Absolutely. I hope our listener is feeling as intellectually stimulated as I am.
Me too.
Yeah.
But before we wrap things up, I want to circle back to something you said earlier about the internet age.
Yes.
And this constant pressure to compare ourselves to others.
Right.
To strive for this often unattainable perfection.
Yes. That's a crucial point.
Because we're constantly bombarded with images of success, wealth, beauty,
perfect lives
that are often carefully curated and filtered.
Exactly. And that can create an even stronger sense of anomie.
Anomie.
Yes.
Like that feeling that we're not measuring up.
Yes, that we're falling behind.
It can make that gap between goals and means even bigger.
It can.
Leading to even more pressure, more strain.
And potentially more deviant behavior.
It's a sobering thought. It's like the internet has created a whole new playing field with new rules, new challenges.
New forms of deviance.
New forms of deviance.
Yeah.
That Merton couldn't have even imagined back in his day.
He might not have imagined the specifics.
Right.
But I think his theory provides a remarkably insightful framework for understanding how these new technologies are shaping our behavior.
Right.
Our values, our understanding of what it means to be successful, to be accepted, to be a part of society.
It's like Merton gave us this intellectual toolbox that we can use to unpack and analyze these complex social phenomena.
It makes sense of the world.
Right.
To understand ourselves and each other better.
And maybe, just maybe, to build a more just and equitable future for everyone.
That's the hope.
Wow, that's inspiring.
It is.
Feels like we've just scratched the surface of this topic.
We have. There's so much more to explore.
But for now, I think we've given our listener a lot to chew on.
Definitely.
What do you think?
I think so too.
Ready to wrap things up?
Let's do it.
Okay, great. So we've explored these 5 different ways that people adapt to the strain between societal goals, and the means to achieve them.
We have.
We've looked at how these adaptations play out in our own lives.
Right, in our everyday experiences.
And we've even considered how they might be playing out on a global scale, shaping the relationships between nations.
It's all connected.
It is. But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought, something to mull over as they continue their own exploration of this fascinating topic.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Think about how Merton's theory might apply to your own life.
To your own life.
Have there been times when you felt that pressure to achieve certain goals?
That pressure.
Maybe even felt tempted to bend the rules or take shortcuts to get there? And how have those experiences shaped your values, your choices, your understanding of success?
That's such a great question to ponder.
It is, right?
Yeah.
It encourages us to be more mindful of the pressures that are shaping our own behavior.
To be more understanding of
Yeah.
the choices that others make.
Yeah, even when we don't agree with them.
Exactly.
I love that. It's a call for empathy,
It is.
for recognizing that we're all navigating this complex social world together.
Together.
And that even those who seem to be breaking the rules
Yeah.
are often just responding in their own way to the pressures and constraints of the system.
They are.
It's a reminder that deviance isn't always a sign of individual moral failing,
Right. It can be a symptom of deeper societal issues.
of structural inequalities that need to be addressed.
That need to be addressed.
And that brings us back to something we touched on earlier,
Okay.
the responsibility we have to create a more just and equitable world.
A more just world.
A world where everyone has a fair chance to succeed
A fair chance to succeed.
without resorting to actions that harm themselves or others.
That's the ultimate goal, isn't it?
It is to create a society where the pursuit of success doesn't come at the expense of social cohesion and shared values,
Right.
where everyone feels like they have a stake in the game
And a chance to win. Yeah.
and a chance to win. Well said. This deep dive has been truly eye-opening for me.
It has been.
I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on why people break the rules
I'm so glad to hear that.
and how society itself can contribute to those choices.
Merton's work is so powerful.
It is.
Because it challenges us
Yeah.
to think critically about the world around us.
To question our assumptions.
To question our assumptions, to look beyond individual blame,
To look beyond individual blame.
and to consider
Yeah.
those broader social sources
Right.
that shape our lives.
And for our listeners out there, I hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity about the hidden forces that influence your own behavior.
And the behavior of those around you.
Fascinating stuff, isn't it?
It is. Remember, the world is full of complexities and contradictions.
It is.
And sometimes the most valuable insights are found in the most unexpected places.
I love that. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of Robert K. Merton's social structure and anomie.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking those aha moments.
They're out there, waiting to be discovered.
Think about how Merton's theory might apply to your own life.
Yeah.
Have there been times when you felt that pressure
Oh, yeah.
to achieve certain goals?
To achieve, definitely.
Maybe even felt tempted to bend the rules a little bit,
Oh, I think we've all been there.
to take shortcuts to get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how have those experiences shaped your values,
Right.
your choices,
Yeah, how we understand success.
your understanding of success?
That's such a great question to ponder.
It is, right?
Yeah.
It encourages us to be more mindful of the pressures that are shaping our own behavior.
To be more aware of those forces.
Right, and to be more understanding of the choices that others make,
More understanding, yeah.
even when we don't agree with them.
Even when we don't agree with them. Exactly.
I love that.
It's a call for empathy, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
For recognizing that we're all navigating this complex social world together,
We're all in this together.
and that even those who seem to be breaking the rules
Yeah.
are often just responding in their own
All
way
right, in their own way.
to the pressures and constraints of the system.
To those pressures and constraints.
It's a reminder that deviance isn't always a sign of individual moral failing.
Right. It's not about pointing fingers.
Right.
It can be a symptom of deeper societal issues.
Of those structural
Hey,
inequalities
those structural inequalities
that need to be addressed.
that need to be addressed. Absolutely.
And that brings us back to something we talked about earlier.
Okay.
The responsibility we have to create a more just and equitable world.
A more just world.
A world where everyone has a fair chance to succeed
Everyone deserves a chance.
without resorting to actions that harm themselves or others.
That's the ultimate goal, isn't it?
It is to create a society where the pursuit of success doesn't come at the expense of social cohesion and shared values,
Right. We need to find that balance.
where everyone feels like they have a stake in the game.
A stake in the game. Yeah.
And a chance to win.
And a chance to win. Well said.
Well, this has been a really eye-opening deep dive for me.
It has been for me, too.
I feel like I have a whole new perspective on why people break the rules
That's what we hope for.
and how society itself can contribute to those choices.
Merton gives us so much to think about, doesn't he?
He does. His work is so powerful.
It is. It really challenges us.
It challenges us to think critically about the world around us,
To question our assumptions.
to look beyond individual blame and to consider those broader social forces that shape our lives.
It's a whole new way of seeing things.
It is, it is. And for our listeners out there,
Yeah.
I hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity about the hidden forces
The hidden forces, yeah.
that influence your own behavior and the behavior of those around you.
It's a fascinating world out there.
It is. It's full of
Complexities.
contradictions.
And sometimes the most valuable insights are found in the most unexpected places.
I love that. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of Robert K. Merton's social structure and Anomie.
It's been a pleasure being here.
Until next time,
Until next time,
keep exploring,
keep exploring, yeah?
keep questioning,
Keep questioning.
and keep seeking those aha moments.
They're out there waiting to be discovered.